Greetings, friends and fellow filmmakers. This is Jason Charnick, your host of Head Above Water, the podcast about independent filmmaking and mental health and all the crazy topsy-turvy stuff that goes into trying to make a career in this business called show. Welcome to our Dances with Film special. On today's episode, we have Megan Petersen and Hannah Black, the stars and directors of Drought, which is screening this week in the virtual film festival, because everything's kind of online right now, the virtual film festival for Dances with Films. They had one screening already and it went fantastic, and they have another screening coming at you tomorrow night. These are live screenings, so tomorrow night their screening is coming up at 5:30 Pacific. So be sure to grab tickets for that. We're going to have links in the show notes to all of that stuff. Don't want to waste too much more of your time on this one. We're going to dive in next week. We have a fresh new show coming at you next week as well. I don't want to take up too much time. Just want to dive into our interview with Megan and Hannah. Join us next week. We're going to have Chelsea Krister on for the San Francisco Doc Fest special. She's the director of Bleeding Audio, the closing night film. And then we have a lot more new shows coming at you that are already edited in the can, and we are going to be coming at you fast and furious with some new stuff. So stick around for all that fun stuff. But until then, here's our conversation with Megan Petersen and Hannah Black. Welcome to Head Above Water. On today's episode, we have Megan Petersen and we have Hannah Black, the filmmakers behind the upcoming, or current, because it's on the festival circuit now, feature film Drought. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So, Megan, let me kick it to you first. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Give me a little bit of your origin story. And then, Hannah, then you can go as well. And tell me a little bit about yourselves, what brought you into filmmaking, you know, why you guys decided to do this, a little bit about the picture, a little bit about yourselves, whatever you got.
Sure. Well, I'm Megan Petersen, and I am the co-creator, co-director, and one of the actors in Drought, and produced it and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't always think I was going to be in movies. I loved doing acting when I was a kid in the community theater. But for some reason, I thought that you had to just be really special or from maybe, I don't know, Los Angeles or New York to be able to do it. So I took the route of biology and psychology.
Okay. I have a psych degree myself. Not, I mean, the show is about mental health, but I have a psych degree. I didn't go to film school or any of that stuff. So
see, you too can do it with your biology and psychology degree.
Anyone can do it.
Anyone can do it.
Making movies is easy.
It's so easy. But I did go to school for that. I thought I wanted to do forensic science. And my husband and I met in college, and then we moved out to Wilmington, North Carolina, which is on the coast. I'm a North Carolinian, born and raised. I grew up in the west part of the state.
Great.
And then we came to Wilmington, and they make movies here,
Awesome.
Believe it or not, in our little town. And so I got into the film world.
So there is like a whole film community out there in Wilmington.
There is. Screen Gem Studios is out here. And it used to be the biggest film lot on the east side of Hollywood besides New York until we lost our incentives. But that's okay, because film is coming back kind of ish. But anyways, I met Hannah at an acting studio here in town. And we both just decided to change our career paths and go a different route, and at the same time, which is insane, and really love collaborating together. That's how I a very quick story of how I got here.
That's awesome. That's how many years ago was that, would you say?
That was 6.5 years ago.
Okay, great. How do you remember that situation, Hannah?
Yeah, so I'm Hannah Black. Hello.
Hi.
And yes, I met Megan in acting class, in a Meisner class in a studio in Wilmington, North Carolina called Actors Arsenal. But when she came into class, I had just enrolled at the same time. So pre-acting class, I grew up in Wilmington, and like Dawson's Creek and One Tree Hill, they were filmed in Wilmington. But just like Megan, I really thought it was reserved for really special people, and I think that everybody wanted to do it. So why would I be able to do it when everyone wants to do it? And so I went to college. I got a degree in elementary education, a minor in psychology. So, hey.
So we're on the right show.
Yeah, not a major. And I taught for 2 years it wasn't really something that I felt a calling for. And I really believe that if you are a teacher, you've got to feel a calling for that.
Sure.
My whole family, all of them are teachers, everybody. So I kind of just picked that because I was like, I don't know what else to do, so I'll pick that. But I was really unhappy, and I was talking to my husband, and I was like, I don't want to teach. And for some reason, I really want to try acting. I never really done it before. And he was like, quit, do it, which is so incredible.
Did he not like that you were a teacher? It sounds like he was just like, let's go try the acting thing. That sounds easier.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, he knew how unhappy I was. And like, even my parents were like, we lost our daughter for a little bit because I was just so unhappy doing what I was doing because I didn't feel a calling for it. But I knew that there was a calling for something else. I just didn't know what it was. And so when I told him about this, he was totally supportive about it. So anyway, enrolled in Actors Arsenal, and there was Megan. We met, and our class was so small. It was only 6 people. And so for 2 years, we were working with these 6 people and our coach, and became really, really close, and realized that we love collaborating together.
That's great.
Yeah.
What about those other 4 people though? They suck.
Where'd
those guys go?
They're the worst.
They're the worst. They're actually the best. A couple of them are in our film. We would have loved to have all of them.
That's great.
Every single one of them are so talented, but it's so neat. We still keep in touch with the other 4 of them, and
everyone's moved away. I think 3 live in Atlanta and 2 live in Los Angeles now.
Okay. And just can't come out here to try to make it in the biz.
1 in LA, 3 in it.
Yes. Oh yeah. Sorry. 1 in LA.
Okay. And Georgia has, at least before all of this other stuff has happened, and that's a whole other topic we'll get into at the latter half of the convo. But yeah, even in Georgia, moving to Atlanta, like Georgia's got a great film community, and they do a lot of Walking Dead and all that other stuff. So those are the places to be. Let me ask you guys this then, since you both actually kind of mentioned a little something about kind of alluding a little bit to a sense of maybe the imposter syndrome a little bit, where you kind of feel like you don't belong there. Like you want to be actors, you want to get into the entertainment business, and you want to act. But talk to me a little bit about just finding your footing, before you even got to Drought. But finding your footing is like, this is my career. This is going to be who I am now.
Great question. That's a good question. I think, and I could be wrong, but I feel like with any artistic endeavor, you're bound to feel imposter syndrome, because I think the way society like looks at artists just in general, and because there's no clear path. And it's just so much. Whereas like when you go to school to be a doctor, sure, you're going to fail, but you're going to fail like in this path and learn these things at this certain time. And then you graduate, and then you go and do this thing and save people's lives, which is scary on a whole other level, but there's just no path. But the really interesting thing, at least for me personally, was, and I still feel like I don't feel like an actor or a director or a writer. And when people ask, I'm like, oh, I'm a barista at a coffee shop. And people, my good friends will be like, no, tell them what you really do. I'm like, well, on the side, I make movies with my best friend.
Because there's almost like, not that people look down on it, but it's like, people look at it as like playtime. Because acting is in a sense playtime, but be like, tell them what you really do. Like, but I'm not, but that's not what I really am. Like, cause I'm just having a good time with my friends. So like, it doesn't, it's like you said, and I always thought of it the same way too. It's not like being a plumber. You don't like go to school, learn how to do a thing, graduate, and then go do that thing. Any creative endeavors just like takes a million other roads to get there. And there is no there.
There's no there. And I think that's it too. Like, I think it's hard when a lot of what do you do is the question, and society defines what you do by how you get your income. And sometimes what you do doesn't necessarily provide your income yet. And so I think it's hard to answer with, I find myself answering with things that make me money instead of what I really do with my life. I think that's really interesting aspect of it. And for me, it feels like maybe somewhere someone's made comments like, oh, you've been acting for a couple years now. Where's your Oscar? Like, ha, ha, ha. Kind of, when is this going to end? When is your fantasy?
When are you going to get back to real life? When is playtime going to be over?
Right.
And you're going to come back and do a real thing now.
You kind of hide it. You don't know how to answer. I remember when I finally let go of my jobs that weren't in the industry and had to fill out a form for the first time, and it said occupation. I was like, Lucas, my husband, was like, do I put filmmaker? Like, what do I write? Yeah. Self-employed? I don't know.
Sure.
So it has been a really interesting transition.
Have you guys, is there, and maybe this will change, is there a specific reason keeping you guys in Wilmington right now, other than probably that you love living there? But is it like you want to be a big fish in a small pond, or is there what's the reasoning, if you will, for staying in Wilmington as opposed to doing what everyone else does? And maybe that's the reason, because everyone else goes to New York and LA.
For me, I love it here. Number one, I just love it. Great. And number two, our whole movie's cast and crew is from Wilmington, except for like the sound design. So we have everything we need here to make movies, despite what it may feel like. And so for me, I think I want to stay here as of right now to keep making movies with the people that live here and keep representing this area of the country.
It's great. Yeah. How about you, Hannah? Is that where you're staying?
Yeah, same. I was born and raised here, so clearly okay. I love Wilmington.
Right.
But also what Megan said, and we're a small fish in a big pond, because big Hollywood, big things are shot here. But again, the talent that is here in Wilmington is really great. And there's such a sense of community that when we've talked to filmmakers from LA or New York or Atlanta, when we tell them our story of how we created Drought and even just like getting our locations, they're like, what? How did you do that? And it's because the community in the old tiny Southeast, specifically in Wilmington and surrounding areas, is so special. There's no I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. It's just I believe in this project. I want to help you make it happen. What can I do? And I haven't made anything anywhere else, so right. I can't speak for those other places, but it is something that I feel that Wilmington has to offer that a lot of places maybe don't have in abundance, that is just overflowing here. So go Wilmington Film.
All right, Wilmington.
It's awesome.
I've never been to Wilmington, but North Carolina is close in my heart because I screened in Fayetteville, which I know is not, it's about an hour and a half away, I think. Yeah. But I screened my movie in Fayetteville a couple of years ago. I'm from New York City myself. I live in the Los Angeles area, not a small town guy, but I just loved walking around downtown Fayetteville, and it's a small little area and everyone knows each other. And it's, it's everything that you would think it would be. It's always enthralled me because I speak to filmmakers both on the show and otherwise about moving to Los Angeles, because everyone that I usually speak to and all the people that I've known throughout the years are all here. So they're all from all over the place. New York City, San Diego, England. I've met people from all over the world, and everyone, the stereotype is true. People want to come here because they want, the whole thing, the glitz and the glamour and everything else that comes with it, amongst other things. It changes per person, obviously, but there's always that allure of just Hollywood, and to be able to stay in a place where you can stay independent and not have to worry about I don't want to say getting stabbed in the back, but like you said, you wash my hands, I'll wash yours, what can you, everyone's always looking for what they can do for them here. And even not in an angry adversarial way, but just hey, I'll help you out, but I'm going to remember it, and I might need your help someday, so which is good too, because it's always, that's the networking of the whole thing, but to be able to stay at home and do the things that you love to do and not have to, and it does kind of link into mental health because you're keeping yourself sane. That's one part of the business that you don't have to you'll probably still have to deal with it somewhat, but you're minimizing it by not having to, meet the kooky people. So they don't like to work with. They like to keep it independent. I don't know why I would call them the kooky people. It's a mental health show. These are crazy. But you guys get my point. You don't have to worry about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I know we never know where our paths are going to end up. But I will say, I think no matter what, for our next films, we'll always, unless for some reason the actual atmosphere and location isn't accurate, we'll probably always film our movies in North Carolina because it's great.
And it's a beautiful place to be. I mean, it's just nice. You've got the water. I'm sure you can cover. You got cityscapes. You got beachscapes, and everything's all just kind of right there for you to take advantage of.
Everything's there. We were just talking to somebody else about all this the other day, and we're very different than him, but we were talking about Danny McBride, who he wants to live in Charleston, and so that's where he lives, and that's where he makes all of his shows out here. Eastbound and Down was in Wilmington, and Vice Principals and The Righteous Gemstones are all made in Charleston, and he keeps his same team and makes movies where he wants to live, and I just love that. He's been able to do that, and
that's great. So I mean, he's somebody that was able to come out and make a name for himself and get situated, but then go back home, and I want to be home. That's, like I said, it just for your own mental health. It's just one, and that's the show isn't necessarily about clinical psychology or things like that, but just just keeping one sane while we're trying to do something in this business.
Totally.
That we want to make money and we want to be successful and we want to be comfortable, but I also don't want to drive myself crazy trying to do too much or do something that I don't want to do, like getting out of teaching because you don't have a calling for it. So like you're putting yourself in a position for not only success, but putting yourself in a position where you don't have the same extra trappings that you might if you came and tried to move out here.
Totally. And especially with wearing all the hats that we have worn for Drought, having that stability of being home, being around family and friends that are familiar. I mean, and also we wouldn't have been able to make our movie if we did it anywhere else because it was such a community effort. But yeah, it definitely kept us mentally sane for wearing all the hats that we did, being able to stay home for sure.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the making of Drought then and its journey, from inception to where it is now. Where did you guys, just do some of the filmmaking chatter. Like where did you guys come up with the idea? Is it personal to you guys? How it's personal to you guys, and just kind of what brought you to this point with it? Tell me a little bit about the picture and the making of it.
Yeah. Megan's pointing to me. So Drought is just a brief synopsis. It's really just a coming of age story about a family that lives in a small North Carolina town in 1993, and it's going through a pretty historical drought. And one of the siblings, Carl, is on the autism spectrum. And it's really just about this family and how he believes that there's a storm coming out west. So they decide to chase the storm in their mom's ice cream truck. Along the way, they really just learn about just the whole family dynamic and forgiveness and following your dreams and that sort of thing. And I came to this, what would be Drought. It was similar to the feature, but not completely, because it's just a little tiny idea to Megan after we had just completed a short film. And I told her about it, and she was like, Hannah, I think this is a feature film. I don't think it's a short. And really one of the main things was when I was a teacher, I worked with kids on the autism spectrum. And I love those kids. They're just the coolest. And I felt like it's not really represented in film very much or TV. And especially usually not someone who is actually on the spectrum in real life. The actor usually portrays someone on the spectrum and isn't necessarily on that. So, and specifically the sibling dynamic. So when I told Megan about this, always on the same page. And then we started crafting up the story. And then 3 years later, we made the movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let me ask you about, so do either of you guys have any autistic siblings or anything? Or was it just, what was your experience working on the script with autistic characters?
So I have no siblings on the autism spectrum. And really my experience was from working with teaching students. But also there were people that I knew, kids and adults alike growing up. My mom was a special needs teacher in the late 80s, early 90s. And so also just getting insight into that, like what, because it took place during that time, what it was like then. But yeah, just reading books and just the experience of working with them in the classroom.
Did you worry about or put any extra pressure on yourself to, I mean, obviously you want to portray them realistically, but, you know, as you guys are crafting the script and working through it, what were you guys doing to make sure that you were doing right by your characters? Like, did you, you know, and how did that affect you? Because like, did you put any additional pressure on yourself that like, we need to speak for all autistic people, and maybe get a little bit too fine with some of your, you know, how did you deal with representing another group that you weren't personally involved with?
That's a great question. I think that hopefully everyone's heard the phrase now, if you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism. And so the beauty of someone on the autism spectrum is there's just like anyone, there's no two people alike.
Right.
So once we really felt confident in that, we knew there's not a stereotype that we're trying to portray. This is an individual human being character and going to be played by someone on the autism spectrum who's going to bring their own unique talents to the role. So we did, we spoke with our lead character, Owen's mom, a lot. We had a lot of conversations with his family, and we had a lot of conversations with people that are also involved in the autism community, like Alex Lehman, who directed Asperger's or Us. And Asperger's or Us on tour. And that was all very helpful. And we did put pressure on ourselves. We wanted to get the story right, the story of Carl, the story between the siblings and their relationship, and the mom and the son and the boyfriend and the son, all of those things. We wanted to do justice and not just do a caricature of somebody that we thought this is how it should look or be portrayed. And Owen, who plays Carl, was wonderful in helping give feedback about the character. So
you feel like you did a good job, and like everyone's kind of happy with the portrayals and everything?
We did the best job that we could.
Sure.
And we haven't, knock on wood, I'm even afraid to say this, we haven't had any negative feedback about that yet. It's been pretty overwhelmingly positive.
Has that surprised you? Were you expecting any negative backlash or anything? Because I mean, in today's environment, I mean, you can have the most righteous position on anything and somebody will find a way to troll you for it or something. So like,
totally.
Have you been surprised by that?
I don't know if surprise is the right word, and I'm sure it's coming, because if you make anything, there's always going to be opinions from other people.
Right.
I think our heart was and is so much that we just want to tell a story about a family, and one of the siblings is on the autism spectrum, and really just show the world what that's like for this family.
Right.
And also we found that the audience for this film is wider than we thought. A much younger audience can watch it, like 8, which is kind of neat.
Great.
Because some 8-year-olds have never been introduced to someone who may be on the autism spectrum.
Sure.
And also someone who's on the autism spectrum that is 8 can be like, hey, there's a lead character that is kind of like me, and he's like the hero in the film, and his voice matters. And so that is our hope. Of course, we know that there will probably be some backlash somewhere, but I just believe that, you know, we tried so hard, researching so much, and just wanted to do the story justice in the best way we could. So hopefully we'll continue to get positive responses. And
that's great. Yeah, that's what we're here for.
I know.
Positive responses.
Yeah.
But you will. I mean, it's just by nature of what film is. There's just so many people that can come across a movie. Like I've been People rip my movie all the time. I go to Amazon Prime. It's either 5-star reviews or 1-star reviews.
Right.
There's like nothing in the middle. So,
Right.
I mean, especially right now in society, there's just nothing in the middle sometimes. So,
Right.
I'm glad to hear that so far it's just been nothing but positive. So let's walk through the production of the movie a little bit too. Because another one of my things that I'm, people moving to Los Angeles, people working, you guys hit all of the things that I'm interested in when I talk to other filmmakers. Because moving to LA is one of them. Collaborating with, whether it be a significant other or a close personal friend, that's another one. But also crowdfunding is a huge, because crowdfunding plays with your mental health in filmmaking like no other thing in the world. So and you guys are also a wonderful example of just the successes of crowdfunding, because not just the seat, but everything that's come out of it. So walk me through a little bit about, when did you guys have your first Kickstarter? Did you have money in the bank already? Had you started production, or was this a whole fresh new thing? Walk me through your first foray into what why you chose Seed and Spark, and just that whole experience.
Yeah.
We were we had this film, and we also wrote roles for ourselves because we're actors and we want to create roles that are have more screen time. You get to develop more of a character.
Give yourself something juicy to work with, of course.
So, but we were aging out of the characters. So we were looking at each other, and here was a tough mental health moment, was, what are we going to do? Like, we're either going to be like, cool, Hannah wrote this beautiful script, we created this project together, cool, we can say we did that and just shelve it, or we can figure out how to get money for it. And so our first thought was investors, because we had seen other filmmaker friends get investment for the under $250,000, like a micro budget film. And so we had planned to do a short film that we would use to pitch to investors. So we'd scheduled a short film. And
that's the way. That seems to be the way. Like, I just finished editing a short just like 2 weeks ago. That's the same thing. That's the calling card. That's the whiplash. It's the whiplash story. Make a short, have somebody drive a dump truck full of money up to your backyard, and then go make a feature. Right.
That'd be great.
But we were going to use probably the funds. We were maybe going to crowdfund for like a really small amount to be able to get an attorney, so an entertainment attorney, to be able to do investment packages, all this stuff. We had no clue what we were doing. And then we were like, okay, we'll just do it. Like, we don't know what we're doing, but let's do it. And thank goodness, Hannah read an article from, I think it was No Film School. Yeah. And she texted to me. It just had, her text was just 13 exclamation marks in the article. And the article said, Mark and Jay Duplass want to executive produce your movie. And we clicked on it. We love Mark and Jay Duplass, indie filmmaking darlings. And we look up to their style of filmmaking, the kind of wear many hats, do all the things. So we looked up the article, and it was called, they were doing a Hometown Heroes rally. And the whole thing behind the rally was you needed to be filming it in your hometown with 75% local cast and crew. Wow. We were like, well, that's what we're doing.
This really is. When they said you, they meant it. They meant us.
I think they meant us. I think I had text Hannah back, because we would look at competitions and stuff all the time. But I read it and I was like, oh my gosh, Hannah, I think we need to actually look into this. We looked into it. The competition was in conjunction with raising crowdfunding through Seed and Spark. So that's how we landed on using Seed and Spark. And the rest is history.
Yeah.
So had you raised any money before that yet? So this was like, here's our chance to make the money that we need to make the movie. How long was the campaign for?
The campaign was 30 days, and we had about, Megan, was it like a month and a half to prep? To prep before the campaign started, which I think, like, from the outside, before we had crowdfunded, we're like, this is so much time. And then when we started getting into it, we're like, this is not enough time. So if anyone's out there listening and you're thinking about doing a Seed and Spark campaign, start like months in advance, and you'll be so glad you did. But yeah, 30 days. And then we were in the top 10.
Wow.
Which
what were you guys looking to get?
So we were raising $25,000.
Okay, that's
or just under 25. And part of the competition is if you make it to the top 10 after those 30 days with the most followers, as well as hitting at least 80% of your goal for your funding, then you get to pitch to them. You get 30 seconds to pitch to them on a video. 30 seconds. So we made this
so no pressure, pressure,
none whatsoever. 30 seconds to say why you should executive produce our film and who we are and all this stuff.
It's almost not fair.
It was wild, but honestly, looking back, I'm still proud of our pitch video. Mm-hmm. We did it, and so we made the pitch video. And then they announced the winners, and we were one of the winners. And so they picked us they wanted to come and executive produce our film, and they gave us additional no interest loan. And
wow,
it was the craziest thing.
Still can't believe it happened in 2017, and we're still like, we did that.
How did this even happen?
I think if you crowdfund, you will remember it for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. I mean, I've had friends that will never do it again, and I've had conversations, I've had arguments with my wife about, because we crowdfunded. She helped me. She reached out to people that she knows that have money that she works with, that when I make another picture, I want to go back to that well, but they're people that she works with. So she doesn't want to make it look like, why do you guys need money? Like, they don't get the film, some people don't get the film business, and they don't see like your personal and professional, like the finances are separate. So like people like, do you need money? Do you need help with your rent or something, your mortgage? Like, no, I'm just trying to make a movie, and these things are not cheap.
No.
So some people never want to do anything with crowdfunding ever again. Some people like me, like I feel like I won't be able to make another movie because I also don't want investors. Like, that's another mental thing for me. Like, these things get built into the contracts. Like, everyone kind of understands that you might not get your money back. But I felt this way about my Kickstarter. I would get a couple of random strangers that were just on Kickstarter and were like, I like this project, I'll give you $20. For the next 7 years, I felt like I owed that individual person something. Like, I owe you don't know who I am. I owe you a movie. Like, and so when the movie was done, like 6 years later, and I finally sent it out to everyone, I'm like, it was always on my mind. And with investors, even though they know that they might lose all of it, like, I would still feel personally like responsible for their risk. And it's just too much for me to like bear that while I'm trying to make the movie too. So I it's easier for me to crowdfund that way. But talk to me a little bit about the and then I'm gonna ask you so many questions about the Duplass guys. So tell me a little bit about, while you were raising the money and you thought that, you had this opportunity to pitch to the Duplass brothers, tell me about reaching out to people just to get the followers, just to get you to the place where you're in the game with those guys. Who were you contacting? I personally, I wrote emails to people I went to summer camp with that I haven't spoken to in like 20 years that were friends on Facebook, because
you get it.
So I was sending, and I was trying to craft them so all the letters were as individual as possible, but I'm emailing like 400 people. So it's like, all right, summer camp friends, elementary school friends, college friends, random people. And I would kind of craft it that way. But every time I would hit send, so this is why I want to know your experience with it. Every time I'd hit send and I'd send it to a list of about 40 people, I'm sitting there waiting. Why hasn't anyone written back? Nobody's going to give me money. This isn't going to happen. I'm a piece of shit. Tell me a little bit about, and that's like every day. I'm an erotic Jewish guy from New York. So, this is what you're going to get here.
That's
but
great.
tell me a little bit about like that, the hustle. And this is why I ask it, because a lot in when I say our business, independent film, it's all about the hustle. It's all about the thing. And everyone's just always like, just go do it. Just go. You just have to suck it up and go do it. And it's not easy for some people to just suck it up and go do it. Right. Some people are made for this business and made to schmooze and shake hands. And some people are, neurotic Jewish guys from New York that just don't want to ask people to give them their hard-earned money. So talk to me a little bit about you were, outreaching to your friends and family and asking them for money and all of that, and how that kind of affected you guys throughout the course of the crowdfunding campaign?
Yeah. Well, so. Megan and I, the cool thing about Seed and Spark is before you launch your campaign, they ask you, you fill out all this stuff. And basically what it comes down to is how much you're raising, how many personal emails do you have from people? And are those personal emails, there's like this whole formula, and Megan can probably explain it better because she works with Seed and Spark now. But essentially this formula is going to say, hey, you need this many more emails in order to be able to reach that audience to hopefully.
So they gave you some sort of concrete goal to work with that you can have something to aim for.
Yes.
Well, that's something
so
certainly
wonderful.
Nobody else does.
It was it's a whole formula. Like I could probably spout it out, but people are like, what? So
just go to Seed and Spark and look it up.
Go to Seed and Spark. Yeah, you can watch the videos, right? And so we knew we needed emails. We watched all the educational videos. We hadn't really paid attention to that like formula. And it was not easy. I want to tell everybody listening, I was voted most shy in high school. There's a reason I got voted most shy as my senior superlative. It's because I don't really love talking to people, or I love talking to people, but I'm not someone to put myself out there. So
I'm the same exact way. Get me going and I'll get going, but I'm not going to be the one to like start the small talk at the party. I wasn't super comfortable. But if I wanted this movie, so you set yourself up for success. What the first thing is to really gain those email addresses, because direct messaging is the way to go for crowdfunding. So honestly, Hannah and I went through our phones first and text every contact in our phone, and it was not comfortable. So I mean, some names you have in your phone, they're there for 10 years. You met the guy once.
Right. You're like, hey girl, Miss Spanish class in high school. Hope you're doing great with your 2 kids.
By the way, can you give me some money?
Yes. Secret to success is you text like 2 people. Like I text my sister and my husband and then random friend from high school. So you text some winners, but you will be so shocked at the people that are like, Megan, oh my gosh, you're making movies now? That's so crazy. Right. Yes. Here's my email. I'd love to follow along. Not to keep plugging Seed and Spark, but the awesome part is instead of asking for money, we were just inviting them to follow our journey.
Right.
And they could just follow along. And then at points in our journey, we were going to ask for funding and support in that way. But they also were a big support just by being an audience member.
Sure.
Because we can now go to a distributor and say, we have over 3,000 audience members already. We have individual emails for over 3,000 people that want to see this movie. And that's just as valuable as somebody's $25. So we got all of those emails because Christina at Seed and Spark, I was at Hannah's house. She remembers the day we got our feedback. You send in your campaign and you get your feedback. And she was like, cool. So you're trying to raise $24,000. You have 350 emails, which we had worked really hard to get those 350.
Right.
She was like, statistically, you need 1,000 emails or you need to lower your campaign goal.
Interesting.
And we were like, oh yeah, Christina.
All right, let me show you.
She was being helpful. Like she was being amazing, but we're like, no one can tell us we can't. We're going to find the emails. So.
Right. Well, that's the mindset you need. If someone says you can't, let me show you how much I can.
Yeah.
We will do it.
Yeah. I mean, and she was more so like, hey, you can't with this, but you can if you follow the formula. So we're like, yeah, we will, because we're going to follow that formula and find those emails. But we did. We found those, and then we launched the campaign. We were emailing. I would start at A's, Megan would start at Z's, and we'd email people every day. So we would send probably 200 emails, 300 emails a day, along with instant messaging people on Facebook all day. Whenever we weren't working, when we weren't working, we were campaigning. And so, and it feels kind of icky at first because you're like, hey, but then you get, like Megan said, these responses from people you haven't spoken to in a while. And either they're like, oh my gosh, like that's so cool. You guys are making a movie. We need film back in Wilmington, or heck yeah, like women in film, or oh my gosh, my cousin is on the autism spectrum and I would love to see this movie. And so it's so cool. And of course there would be people that wouldn't answer back, but there's honestly not time, because our situation was unique. We were crowdfunding, but we are also competing against 72 other films to get executive producership.
So you don't have the time to even worry about it. You have a specific goal in mind. See, that's what, whether there's a Hometown Heroes or not, specifically Indiegogo and Kickstarter, I had campaigns with both of those guys. That's why my next time I probably will go with Seed and Spark. But yeah, there's no, you make up your goal. My goal for my picture was $6,000. I was like, I just need enough to get to New York to shoot, and I'll figure the rest out. Like, I know $6,000 isn't nearly enough to make a, any kind of movie, documentary or otherwise. So and there was no guidance. There was no, there were like classes you could take. I'm like, I don't have time for this. I don't need to I just want to do it so I can get my money from a movie and make my movie. So, but they don't give you goals. They don't give you these milestones along the way that are specific. Like you don't have time to feel guilty. You don't have time to feel uncomfortable. You're chasing a goal. And that's good, because that's like, you don't need the additional angst of raising the money when you're trying to do the thing in the first place. So it helps. It sounds like it's like an extra bonus that they take the edge off a little bit by giving you some, specific milestones.
Yeah. And there just wasn't even, of course there's plenty of Facebook Live videos that are, they're so embarrassing, because that is what we found when we would go on Facebook.
Those up.
We have to. When we would go on Facebook Live, specifically late at night, that's when we would get our followers, and that's when we would also get our contributions, because people are home from work, they put the kids to sleep, they're settling in for the night. And so we were like pouring our heart out on these Facebook Lives. And I think it was just also all the stress combined with it, because it is a full-time job. I don't know how people crowdfund solo. I don't understand how they do that. Not easy.
And I had a co-producer and an editor attached, but like they were just working on a project. So like they were, they would share it every now and then, but certainly not, with the gusto that I needed to do it. So it really was very much a solo effort. And like I said, you have to split it up into these little groups to make it more manageable. But yeah, you'd send out an email and then I'm just like, nobody's written me back yet. So it can be nerve-wracking. So I'm glad to hear your experience with it was a little bit smoother.
Yeah. Mind you, we still were we were so stressed we collectively lost 20 pounds in 30 days.
Just stress only, you think? You just weren't eating?
We were eating. It's like honestly a blur. So we would campaign at Megan's house. Her husband is a nurse, but he's also an incredible chef. I call him Chef Lucas. And he would cook us food, because I think he was concerned about how rapidly, and we're small women already, and how rapidly we were like losing weight. So we would be fed, but I think just all the stress of it, it's like our adrenaline was constantly just
you're always pumping. Worrying about it. And I just wish there was some, I don't know, not that I've thought about like doing something, codified, but I just wish there was some support, or something like when they teach people how to crowdfund, they tell you all these things to do, but nobody prepares you for, there is a mental toll to it. There really is, like, especially when it's a really close, you're crowdfunding because you can't find someone to give you $1 million.
Right.
So you're already behind the 8 ball. And the last thing you need, you're trying to get the movie made anyway. The last thing you need is all this extra stuff weighing on you just to not even, like you said, not even get the $25, but just to get the email address. Just feels like you're hustling. So like I was, saying, like, we have to hustle, but some people just aren't comfortable doing it. And I wish there was more of the support for that for people. And maybe there will be, and maybe we just need to think it up. So, but let me ask you this. So let's move on a little bit so the crowdfunding is over, and now you've won the Hometown Heroes, and now you're working a little bit with the Duplasses. So you guys have finished up your crowdfunding campaign, and now you just won the Hometown Heroes thing. We were talking a little bit earlier about imposter syndrome. nothing for me, it makes me feel imposter syndrome more than when I'm talking to a celebrity about my own stuff or, you know, on some sort of collaborative level. And I've had the opportunity to do that with a couple of people. And you're like, well, like, it's the same thing we were talking about at the beginning, like the actors and the stars and the they're all up there. I'm just the guy sitting in the seat. So like the fact that like now professionally we're kind of in that world a little bit, you're like, do I belong here? What's the, you know? So talk to me a little bit about your first time meeting the Duplasses, how working with them was, and, you know, how it felt to realize that you guys belong there. Like, if sometimes you feel like you don't, but if you're collaborating with these guys. So tell me what it was like, not only just working with them, but coming to the realization that you belong in that conversation.
I still don't think I've come to that realization, but I think I've accepted it.
Yeah.
I think honestly, so we sent the script to them, the full script, and then it was the holidays, and then they set up a call with us, and we work primarily with Mark and some people that are on his team. And we set up a FaceTime call, and we just have no shame, if I'm honest. I don't know if it came from the crowdfunding. So when he's like, how do you plan to like budget this? We were like, we don't know.
Like, we don't know anything, Mark. We just,
That's why we need your help.
So we have always just like figured it out as we go. And we are so like opposite of what every podcast tells you to do. Even Seed and Spark tells you to do. Like everything says, you got to think about the distribution before you even start. You need to think about the end game at the beginning. But the learning curve for us was so steep that we just had to take it a step at a time. So we're like, okay, we're at this step. Now this is what we're going to think about. For good or for bad, that's how this one had to be. We might do it differently. But I think it was It was a great first meeting with him. Yeah.
How many times overall did you like chat with him along the way?
Oh gosh. Well, him and his team, they're always available for an email, or if it was something, you know, dire, a phone call. We worked a lot more we worked a lot more with him when we were getting the script right. So it could be shot for the budget that we have. But yeah, like it was, it's not like they like ever flew out or we flew out or anything like that to see them, but they were just so available for a phone call or for an email. But I do think that the moment where it didn't feel so, I think the really cool thing about Mark, and I don't really know why this is, maybe it's just because he's a really kind person, but when we were like getting ready to talk with him on the phone, we were like freaking out. We're like, oh my gosh,
right.
But he's so steady on the phone and so kind, so humble. I never felt small.
That's great.
Like around him. And in fact, I don't know what phone call it was, but when he was talking about who's going to direct, he was like, you guys are going to direct, right? And at the time we were like, no way, man. Like,
oh, so you guys weren't even planning on directing from the beginning. Oh, I thought like this was your vehicle to like.
No. Okay. We just, because we played two of the leads in this film and we had never done anything in that capacity before. And the endurance that takes as an actor is pretty extreme, especially when you're already producing it, which we were, and we were doing casting and locations and all the other.
You got to turn that tap on and
all
off
the things.
All the time.
Yeah. And so we were not thinking that we were going to direct it. I mean, it was kind of in the back of our head, but it wasn't something that we're like, we're making this to direct it. And when he was like, well, why wouldn't you guys? And we're like, well, we're two of the leads in it. He was like, so? And
he's
we're kind
of this.
Right. Well, we're like, but Mark, like, you don't understand. We don't know how to do anything. Like, we don't know. And he was like, you guys know this story better than anyone else. You care about it more than anyone else. And yeah, you guys are two of the lead actors in it, but basically he believed in us. And so I think the imposter syndrome will always feel real, but when someone like that has that belief in you, it does instill in you this sort of like, maybe we can do it. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be this Oscar-winning thing, but I think we can do it because he thinks we can.
That's great.
You know?
I mean, that's really all you want, especially out of an executive producer, is someone who will believe in you and will fight for you and champion you guys. Because I love hearing that he helped, was so supportive for you guys. You know, that to have that support, whether it be from a celebrity or just, anybody who's involved in the project. Filmmakers, I find, even the most confident, self-assured people, they become filmmakers, they become actors and directors because there's something missing. There's always something that they, want to fill, and they do that through their films. So, to hear that, you can get involved with someone who's legitimately cares about making your project the best that it could be and empowering, giving you guys the tools for success too, is, it's already a hard enough experience. So to have, yet another thing that we're going to drive ourselves crazy about taken off the table just makes it a little bit easier, to move forward. So, and moving forward, so let me ask you about where, and this takes us into the whole mental health situation of the world as it is now, because 2 months ago, you guys had a whole, I'm sure, path for your movie and the festival circuit and all of that. And then this thing happens. So talk to me a little bit about your expectations for the film, both before COVID and after COVID, where the movie is at now, where you guys are at, and just, moving forward from here, how you guys plan on getting the film seen and how it's weighing on you, dealing with, a whole new set of situations to deal with.
Yeah. We've had a lot of situations that have weighed on us throughout this filmmaking process. So it kind of, I don't want to say it lightly, like par for the course, because there's a global pandemic. So it's kind of dramatic. Right. But we did have to pause 12 days into our movie because of Hurricane Florence. And there was so much uncertainty with that.
And that's when you were in production.
We were in the middle of production.
Oh, so you're kind of used to, okay, so you have a little bit of...
We have some experience.
Nothing really prepares you for COVID, but you've had experience with emergencies.
Yes, we've had multiple emergency situations and tragedies happen. And so I think that we have really developed, I hope, healthy ways to cope. We know each other well enough, mostly because of Meisner class, that we know when we're not coping in a healthy way. For me, it's when I text Hannah that I'm watching The Amazing Race. She's like, Megan's not doing well.
Oh, no.
He's escaping to reality television. But honestly, we paused for the hurricane. We didn't know if it was going to hurt how bad it was going to hurt our city. We didn't know if we were going to finish the movie. We didn't know if our houses were going to still be there or if our locations were going to be there.
Wow.
And so we've had a lot of uncertainty. And so now it just feels like another step into that. And it's been a time just to pause. There was a grieving moment of, we have had so much uncertainty and more tragedy that we haven't talked about, but kind of you have a moment of why me? Like, why can't why can't this film just have one part of the process, not all the parts?
That just like
Can
goes.
Something just go smooth, please.
Right. Just like happen, without any sort of interference.
Sure. I've on multiple times have thought, can you just work? Or you're speaking to the guy, whoever, no one in particular, but can you just do the thing that I want you to do, please? Because I just don't want to worry about it. I'm so tired.
Right,
so and you just want something to just make the path easier. But you guys got to the end of that path. You made that. I tell people all the time when I speak to indie filmmakers who are, in a similar position to you guys, just getting going, just getting started. People don't realize, the general public, the general public doesn't really realize how hard it is to make a movie. And, thousands of movies come out a year. So people think like, it's just like, it's just an assembly line,
Easy.
And people don't necessarily realize everything that you have to rack your brain over. So just getting to finish the movie is an incredible accomplishment. So my kudos, my hats off to you guys for making all that happen. Because, you need to hear it. I mean, it's true and it's what it is. So answer me this then. So where does the movie stand now? Like, so you're on the circuit. It's a virtual circuit. What is, where is the movie lying right now? And what were your plans before all this happened? And how have you shifted plans, if you have?
Yeah. So the plans before was to just do a festival run and go to the festivals and meet the other amazing filmmakers that are there and just the community. But then with COVID happening, a lot of these festivals have either changed their dates and are waiting to decide if they want to go virtual or do like a combination of virtual and in person. We had our world premiere at Vail Film Festival virtually. And of course, like making that decision to do the world premiere virtually, it was a hard decision to make because of course, every filmmaker's dream, once they call, that's a wrap. Their next thing is like, I can't wait to see this film, like with all these people in this audience. And so we haven't yet experienced that, but the experience that we did have was the best that it possibly could have been. Emily Best came and moderated our Q&A afterwards. We did a live Q&A. Awesome. And we had Owen and Drew, who played Carl and Lewis in the film. They're also in the Q&A with us, all virtually.
It's great.
So it was really wonderful. And now we have some more festivals that we've gotten into that are pretty much moving to virtual. But it has been difficult because some of these, every festival is different. And virtually they're picking what's best for their festival, and sometimes it's not best for a feature film.
Sure.
And it breaks our heart because sometimes we have to say no when normally we would have said yes, because film festivals are so important to the film ecosystem and we love them. So now it's just kind of navigating, if we are accepted into festivals, which ones are best for Drought to help in the long run. So that's kind of where we are.
All right. So it's all still kind of up in the, and things are going to change as theaters start opening up again. And like, these are tough decisions for everyone to make.
Yeah.
It's just another thing to have to worry about.
There's no clear path because it's never been done before. So I will say the grace that everyone gives everyone right now has been really wonderful. So yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to be the one guy that's like, oh, God damn it. You're like, I thought that this thing would have made, been my star turn, and now it's all, you just got to go with what's happening. Just go.
You got to, or you won't survive.
Exactly. All right. Well, let me ask you guys a couple more quick questions, then I'll let you guys get on with your day because I know it's getting late back east. So, what do you guys do? What during production or now or otherwise? What do you guys do to kind of de-stress and get your mind, like when all these things get too much and you just need to take your mind off of things? Like, what do you guys do to take your mind off things and recenter yourselves?
It's a good question. Because what we do has to do with movies, sometimes it's hard for me to check out by watching movies because then I find I'm getting stressed. Because I'm like, we'll never make something like that, or, I'll never be as good of an actor as that person. So for me, I like to go surfing.
Awesome.
I like to walk my dog. I recently fractured my foot, so I've been not able to do those things. So I'm learning new ways to cope. It's been very difficult. So just lots of like sitting out in nature, praying, talking to God, talking to Megan and my husband.
Sure.
Yeah.
How about you, Megan? What do you do to get your mind off of things?
Well, my natural state is to do more work, which is not healthy. So sometimes when I'm stressed, I just busy myself. So I really have to be intentional about, or I'll go the total opposite way and slow myself down to work on nothing, do absolutely nothing. So trying to find the balance. Finally has nice weather here, and I've really been enjoying being out in the backyard. We're so grateful to have a backyard. I know a lot of people right now are in apartments, and that's tough.
Sure.
So when it's nice, I just go sit out there. But time is very strange right now.
Yeah.
Like, I think in the past, I would have said, I would go to a coffee shop with Hannah and we just have fun, or we go on a walk. And right now I don't see anyone, and so time is like very
It's a very nebulous time for people. Yeah, you can't tell if it's been 4 weeks or 4 months or and I'm like I said, I'm in Long Beach, California, so I'm right on the border of LA County and Orange County. And you might have seen on the news with Orange County some of the protesters who want their haircuts, and that's what you kind of have to deal. A lot of not mask people, and a lot of all that. And like, I don't want to argue with anyone. I just want to be able to go to the doctor and not have someone make fun of me because I'm taking care of myself.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just, that's what you kind of get out here in Orange County and LA County. It's a very different place. But yeah, you usually like to go out and see stuff, and you can't do that anymore.
I know what I do.
What do you do, Megan?
What do you do?
I like to do jigsaw puzzles.
Yes, you do.
Yeah,
that's how I de-stress.
Well, then I'll send you the 1,000-piece one that my wife and I bought when everything shut down in March, and we finished The Border, and it's been sitting on our table in the dining room for she just put it away like last week. It's been sitting there for like 6 weeks. She's like, let's do the puzzle today.
I'll take it.
We're not puzzle people. We wanted to be. We're not puzzle people. So,
I'm with you, Jason. I can't puzzle.
Like you couldn't have started with like a 300 piece. You got 1,000 piece of like Cinque Terre in Italy. Everything's like all different colors. This is crazy.
Yeah. Oh
but
gosh, lots of blue.
If we ever finish it up. So we are not puzzle people. All right. Well, let me ask you this last question before I let you guys go. So, and I ask this it's one of the gimmicks of the show, and it's kind of changed and morphed a little bit. Are you happy? Are you happy with where you're at in life? Are you happy with how the film came out? Are you happy? It's such an easy question that I'm sure you can answer with just a simple yes or no. That's why I'm not making it such a gimmick anymore, because as I ask more people, it just sounds more ridiculous. Like it's just are you happy? It's a spectrum of things. But are you guys happy with where you're at in life, and you're happy with the movie, and you feel confident moving forward with things?
Yeah, it's so funny because right now, like just with the pandemic and everything, it does feel like an emotional whiplash just in general.
Sure.
But I will say with the film, I'm so happy with the way it turned out and the hard work of our team. We went through the ringer, and we came out on the other side with this really sweet film, and we all still love each other, which is
it's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm happy. I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Awesome. How about you, Megan?
I would say yes. I'm so happy with the film. I'm so happy I got to make it with my best friend.
It's great.
I am. Happiness right now is maybe that's the word I'm getting caught up on. I don't know how I feel about everything.
I mean, the way the world is right now, like you can be like, it changes every 5 minutes. So.
It does. It was, I'm happy that we just found out masks are mandatory. My husband is working in the COVID ICU.
Oh, wow.
He's a nurse. So I think right now, and I'm so happy with the movie, but my brain is consumed with like what's happening in the world.
Other things.
But it's okay.
Good.
It's okay to not always be happy. I think.
Happy. Yeah. And it's okay to not be okay.
Absolutely. I had, when I first started the show, I had always, and it's one of the things that I've been grappling with, and one of the reasons why I want to talk to other people about, how they define happiness. I always, especially during the production of the movie, thought it was a goal. I finish the movie, I sell the movie, people see the movie, I'm happy. I'm going to be happy. And then you get to that place and you're like, I'm not where I thought I was. I'm not as happy as I thought. Like you said, I'm happy with the movie, but like happiness in its own terms in life, like that's a whole different, ball of wax. So I'm just, and realize that other people, especially filmmakers, we all have very different, goals of being in this business. Some people want to write scripts so they can act in them, and that can be their vehicle. Some people want to direct. Some people just want to tell stories. Some people want to be rich. Some people want to be famous. So it's going to be, different for other people, but I want everyone to be able to feel open and share that perspective and hear from you guys and have the opportunity to tell our audience, what happiness is to them. And I said, it's not going to be an easy answer, and it's always going to change, but Megan Petersen, Hannah Black, thank you so much for joining me. Is there anything else that you specifically wanted to talk about? Anything you guys had on your mind? You're going to just kind of keep pimping out the movie on the virtual festival circuit. And are you still looking for distribution? Is there any news on that front? Anything that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, there's really nothing to share.
But you're actively working for it. Yeah,
right now it's kind of this funky, again, with COVID, like what is distribution? What does it even mean right now? But yeah, we're looking, it seems to change every day, but we're actively searching for the right home for Drought, whatever that means and whatever avenue that means. Yeah.
You can follow us on all our socials.
Yeah, there it is. Because I was going to say, like, where do people find the movie? But the movie's not out yet. So how can people learn more about the movie? How can people learn more about you guys and stay in touch with you guys and follow the journey of, not only you guys, but Drought moving forward?
Yes, all of those, anywhere, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Just become one of the followers and feel free to direct message us or connect with us, because it really, every little follow makes a difference when it comes to this part of the process we've found. So
sure.
Drought the movie on
Facebook and Twitter and all the things. Instagram and all those. And I'll put links to everything in the show notes so everybody can jump to things real quick and all that. And once you guys get distribution, we'll have you back on, and then you can tell us about all the wonderful things that we have to deal with now that the movie is actually out. And
right.
Like I said, everyone's supporting you so far, but there's going to be somebody out there, and then dealing with that's a whole different ball of wax. But until then, we'll worry about that when we get to it. Until then, it's nothing but praise. It's nothing but good stuff.
We'll live in that right now.
We're going to live in that. Yeah,
exactly.
For sure.
So Hannah Black, Megan Petersen, thank you guys so much for joining me.
Awesome.
Jason,
thank you so much.
It was nice meeting you guys as well. Enjoy the rest of your day, your night, and I'll talk to you guys soon. We'll always be on Facebook and Twitter and all that, and we'll keep going.
Love it. Thank you so much, Jason.
Take care, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Okay, you too. Bye.
And there you have it, our conversation with Megan Petersen and Hannah Black from the movie Drought, which is playing its final screening tomorrow in the Dances with Films Film Festival, happening virtually online. Check out the show notes. We have links to buy tickets. It's a live screening that happens tomorrow night, so be sure to grab your tickets and watch the movie online and help support independent film. We'll be back next week. Yes, next week. These shows are edited and in the can and ready to come at you. So please join us next week. We're going to have our SF San Francisco Doc Fest special with director Chelsea Christer of the movie Bleeding Audio. It's the closing night movie of San Francisco Doc Fest. And it's a great film, and I hope you guys all enjoy that. And stay tuned for more info. But until then, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Head Above Water Podcast. On Twitter, we are Head Above H2O Pod, but Instagram and Facebook, Head Above Water Podcast. Official site is headabovewaterpodcast.com. You can listen to all of our old episodes as well there. And stay tuned. We'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you for putting up with me and my very erratic scheduling of these shows. I appreciate all your support. Leave us a review on iTunes or whatever your platform of choice is for listening to this. And we will see you guys in just a little bit. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.